And welcome back. I'm a little behind in some videos, but I'm making up for it by getting 3 out today. Plus, I'm going to go see Space Jam and New Legacy later tonight. But episode 6, the final episode of this season. We got it announced in the credits, apparently. We weren't paying that much attention, me and my girlfriend. That there was going to be a season 2 of Loki. And that Loki is probably going to appear in Doctor Strange in a Multiverse of Madness. And given the nature of how this episode and the season ended, that seems to add up quite a bit. I want to say this might have been my favorite episode of the season. It might have been. If for no other reason than the fact that they gave us, I believe it's Jonathan Majors, that's his name. Yep, Jonathan Majors introduced us to Kang. The man who would be Kang. Because let's be honest, technically speaking, this isn't Kang. It's by all accounts, it's Kang. It's just a variation of Kang who's a bit more benign than the actual Kang, the actual Conqueror. Now, I say that, having also wanting to say, I don't get to do a lot of called it on these things. But when I get a called it, I get a called it. And if you saw my last video, my last review and my last theory, I theorized that they were going to combine He Who Remains and Kang into one character. And sure enough, Miss Minute shows up, which I found was hilarious. Say, He Who Remains. He's got a way to bring you both back into the timeline without all messing up now. And then when we see him like He Who Remains, I'm like, but everything's pointing to Kang. Wait, is my theory right? And then the elevator comes up, and there's Jonathan Majors sitting there in an elevator. I'm like, I called that shit. That felt good. But I love the way that Jonathan Majors is playing. Technically, again, he's not known as Kang, but obviously he's Kang. But in terms of what we call his character, the only thing he's actually ever called is He Who Remains. And the way, but he's obviously a variant of Kang, where maybe he's known as also Immortus. He's dressed like Immortus, but he is the reason for the TVA, and the real reason for the TVA is just to make sure that the other versions of Kangs never run amok the multiverse, because that's how the multiversal war is going to actually start out again. And the way he explained it, he's got his own little tempad, but it looks different. Me and my girlfriend misheard it. We heard it as he came from 31 AD, and we're like, well, that's how they figured that out is unknown, like the whole dimensional thing. But no 31 AD would be created equal. But no, it turns out he was from the 31st century, which makes a lot more sense. To how him and other versions of him could figure out this whole scientific, hoopla. And so, and then, technology confounds on technology. And I love that. It's like, I've been called many things. He Remains, Conqueror, all that. He's like, Kang the Conqueror. I love the way that Jonathan Majors plays Kang the Conqueror. He's playing this character because this is a guy who has total control over the scenario the entire time. Even when he says, it's like, I lied initially. I knew how everything was going to play up until this moment, and now I don't know. It's a little freeing, not knowing. But really, his ultimate goal, at least as it stood by the series, was he just wanted out. He was done. He said he was tired. He was older than he looked. He wanted someone to either kill him or take over. Either way, he's good. It's like, you take over, I'm good. I'll just, disappear. You kill me, I'm just gonna reincarnate, or another version of me is just gonna take my place. Reincarnation, baby. It's the subtle moments with the way he performed it, where it's like, when he came, it's like, why would you do this? And when he's been acting all just like jovial and kooky and wacky, but he kind of like leans back and just, look, I am tired. And I'm older than I look. And I've gone over millions of scenarios. This is the only one that actually pans out. And, it's very unique. It's like, this is a guy who's got complete confidence, but also a guy who probably doesn't get a lot of visitors. So he's like really happy to have people to talk with. So yeah, I just found it very, very entertaining. I love the intro to the episode too, where you hear the entirety of like the Marvel history, plus quotes from our own real life, from a lot of activists and civil and rights movements, political figures. And then you get sort of just the shot of the actual timeline and basically this infinite loop. And it's beautiful shot. Like, it looked gorgeous. When the timeline starts to branch, that looked gorgeous too. The fact that Ravonna got away. I, you know, I wish there was maybe more. There was more comeuppance, because Ravonna's not really a villain per se. I don't know if she's really an antagonist. She's not necessarily a good guy though, because she's so adamant about this whole, she's all adamant about the mission. Like, I have to believe it. This was, there was a reason for all this. I have to believe. Like, she wouldn't see the other side of the picture. Like, even though, as we'll talk a little later about Sylvie and, Loki and Kang, that is still one of those things where, was it right to destroy the TVA? Who knows? But it's one of those things where she might be right that there's got to be a purpose about the whole free will thing to go find. And she's like, what are you gonna do now? Go find for some free will. But the fact that she was still very, wouldn't listen to wouldn't try to listen to hear someone out. I don't know. To me, she doesn't come off as a bad guy, but she really doesn't come off as a likable character. Not to say she's not interesting, but she doesn't come off as a likable character. Like, I don't root for her, I think is the thing. I think is the way I'm trying to go for. But, then you get to the whole, deal with Sylvie and Loki, and, him like, okay, I believe him, and sure enough, he's right. Loki was actually the one making the right play here, which really goes to show how much he's grown to the point where, when they clash again, it's like, you kids, I can't be trusted, and you can't trust anyone. And that fight, and you just see, I like the analogy that was the Emperor to throw him just watching, laughing. Mayors is just watching, is like, oh man, this is fun. And then that moment, it was like, all I know is that, I don't want to hurt you. I like this. I like the fact he didn't say, I love you. I like the fact he's like, I just want you to be safe. I just want you to be okay. And you can also see Maris also in the background just going like, oh, that's really sweet. And then that moment where she just betrays him and, pushes him out of the temp pad and the door. And yeah, Sylvie basically, I mean, let's be clear, the multiverse thing's going to get settled out. It is. But in the universe, they don't know that. All they know is now Kang the Conquerors are coming. And she just stabs him, and I love those little ways. She said, see you soon, because she didn't believe him. And it was all, she couldn't get past her own emotions and her own vendetta. And ultimately, that screwed over the universe hard, the multiverse now, if you will. And I love the fact, too, and this was very key, that you're seeing the branches and timelines, and the branches within those branches, and the crossover of branches, which, is kind of giving us a good explanation, or a good idea of how, like, Alfred Molina and Jamie Foxx's Electro and Doc Ock and whoever may else show up, can come over into the MCU for Spider-Man No Way Home. How Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness may kind of, indicate things. But I think this is how the X-Men are coming into the universe. Because when it's all said and done, I think one concurrent timeline, it's either going to be one of two things. One concurrent timeline where a lot of these things have just kind of merged in. The main MCU stuff will mostly be purged, except for a few exceptions, like the Fox, not necessarily the Fox, but the X-Men, the timeline where the X-Men were created, mutants were basically created. I think that is going to be playing a big factor into this. Or only a couple actual multiverses are going to remain. Like several universes, and they might actually keep the X-Men separated from that. I doubt it's going to be that. I do think the X-Men are going to be in the MCU. So I think that's kind of your theorized hint of how the multiverse is going to ultimately play into bringing X-Men, Fantastic Four, the Spider-Man No Way Home plot. I think that's how that's going to work. But I just like the fact, too, that when Sylvie kills him, you don't really get a look of satisfaction on her face. Because she's looking out the window and seeing like the timelines branching and all that. And she just, I think, if I remember correctly, she just sits down and staring. You don't see her face. I think Sylvie's kind of realized she might have effed up. I think she realized that that didn't solve anything. Yeah, I killed him. Now what? Like, now what? Because really, what was going to be the end game after she killed him? And when because she's almost certainly going to be in season 2. I think she's going to have some stuff to answer for. Like, I'm interested to see what the next confrontation with her and Loki's going to look like. Because Loki, I think when we see him there, it's the first time I think he really felt the betrayal that he instilled in others and finally realized what it felt like. And, he just felt helpless and without purpose. But, his glorious purpose gone. Like, he's just alone there. But, he bucked up and he's like, all right, gotta go, gotta tell Mobius and B. Hunter, I can't remember that Hunter's name. That a character who I like. He shows us like, okay, wait, you're an analyst, right? And I'm like, wait, what? And it's like, what department are you with? And the minute he said that, I'm like, and my girlfriend and I are like, oh, that's not the same Mobius. And then he's like, can we get security? And then you see the statue of Kang. And think about it. All the Kangs would have probably had the same idea for the TVA to some degree. But, obviously, if the He Who Remains Kang is killed, another Kang's just going to take over because they probably would have been aware of the TVA in some capacity. We'll get him the amount of knowledge and access to technology they have. So, and in intellect. So it makes sense that another Kang would have taken over, and now just move things to his more end game and goal. So the fact is, like, Loki ends on like a whoa moment. Yeah, the question now becomes, when are we going to see Kang again? We know he's going to be in Ant-Man Quantumania. But that is a full year away minimum. Actually, it might even be like 2 years. I think that might be 2023. But obviously, we had him introduced here. Is Kang going to be hinted at through other Marvel movies? Well, let's look at least the brief lineup we have coming up right now. We have Shang-Chi, we have Eternals, we have Spider-Man No Way Home, and we have Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, plus Thor, Love and Thunder. And those are the ones I can remember off the top of my head. I don't see any reason for him to show up in Shang-Chi. I would honestly could see a better, I could see a better argument for either Doctor Strange, given the slight mysticism nature of Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings, or Valentina trying to recruit him. So, but I don't see him in Shang-Chi. Maybe Eternals. Eternals could work. Spider-Man No Way Home and Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness. Those actually seem like better choices. Now, I'm not saying he'd have like a major role or anything, but I feel like his presence is going to be known. We're going to hear about him more and maybe see a little bit of him, kind of like a la Thanos up until his, Infinity War. So I think that might be what we kind of look at here. But that's just my opinion. What do you think? But ultimately, this arguably was, I think, my favorite episode because even though there was very little action, it was the conversation, the dialogue, and the lore and the characters that really, I think, kind of drove it home for me. It was still a cool fight between Loki and Sylvie, too. It was a good fight, but it wasn't like end all be. It wasn't Alliance versus classic Loki, which was just glorious purpose. It wasn't that moment, which, to be fair, while I say this might be my favorite episode of the season, that was my favorite moment of the series. Like, hands down. That was a lot of people's favorite moment of the series. Ultimately, though, that was just my opinion on this episode. What did you think about it? Let me know in the comments below. But thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe. As always, who wants to review something, put in the comments below. Let us know. I'll do a review of it at some point. Hit that bell if you want to be notified. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Later.